Welcome back to Knowledge with Miss Mutu. Today we are doing lesson 11. This is the final lesson of the unit. So make sure you sit back, pay attention to get all the information you will need for your review tomorrow. Today we're reading our last lesson of the unit. First, we're going to start off with our introduction to the read aloud, then the read aloud, discussion conversation, word work, application, and exit ticket. Throughout the video, I'm going to be telling you different opportunities where you can stop and take a break. So let's jump into the introduction to the read aloud in 3, 2, 1. Introduction to the read aloud. Let's locate and review the following places on the map. So I want us to locate and review the Atlantic Ocean. So the Atlantic Ocean is the ocean that's on the right side of the map. Right now it's currently covered in white. It's by the green area. So all of that water surrounding the 13 colonies is the Atlantic Ocean. Then we're going to talk about the Appalachian Mountains. The Appalachian Mountains are the mountain-like images that you see on the map in the green area. So those little hill-looking triangle things, that is where the Appalachian Mountains are located. And if you notice, it's in the area near the 13 colonies. Now let's talk about the Mississippi River. If you look on the map, right as you go to the left of the Appalachian Mountains, you will notice the Mississippi River. Now I want you to further travel west from the Mississippi River all the way to the Brown Rocky Mountains. That area circled in brown, that is the Rocky Mountains. And now I want you to think about that travel that you just did from the green area all the way over to the Rocky Mountains. All of that land in between is the Louisiana Purchase. Now let's talk about one more river. If you look in the purple, there is a Missouri River that's colored in purple. So that is also a very important river that we need to know. And last but not least, we see the blue area all the way on the left, which is also the west. That is the Pacific Ocean. So here is the diagram to break down the different parts of the United States during the time of Lewis and Clark's exploration. The area circled in red, that is the mouth of the river. So we're going to remember that too as well. So now let's continue to talk about what we have already learned about Lewis and Clark's exploration and the 3 things they need to accomplish. President Thomas Jefferson wanted Lewis and Clark to do 3 specific tasks as they explored the area out west. Task number 1 is that he wanted them to make friends with the Native American. Task number 2 is that Thomas Jefferson wanted Lewis and Clark to find an all-water route to the Pacific Ocean. Task number 3 is that he wanted Lewis and Clark to collect plant and animal samples of any plants or animals they encounter out in the West. Now it's time for the read aloud. If you want to take a break during this time, this is an appropriate time. If not, the read aloud will start in 3, 2, 1. Purpose for listening. Today, you will hear about the last portion of Lewis and Clark's expedition. I want you to find out and listen to see whether or not Lewis and Clark made it to the ocean and if everyone made it back home. Here we go. The closer Lewis, Clark, Sacagawea, and their friends came to the Pacific, the more Native American people they met. This land was home to many Native Americans who had lived there in settled communities for a long, long time. Communities are groups of people who live together in the same place. With the help of the Shoshones and the Nez Perces, the Corps of Discovery crossed the Rocky Mountains, which stood between them and the Pacific Ocean. A new, powerful river began in these mountains. The captains hoped to ride it downhill to the ocean, but the Nez Perce warned. In some places, this river rushes through narrow, rocky canyons, moving so quickly and powerfully that it is difficult to control the boat there. Canyons are steep, rocky valleys. You could be hurt if your boat hits the canyon walls or the sharp rocks sticking out of the water. William Clark and the group's best canoeists climbed the rocks to look down at this part of the river. A canoeist is someone who paddles a canoe. They heard the roar of the water charging through the narrow canyon even before they saw it. Walking on top of the rock rim high above, Clark asked the canoeist, "What do you think?" "Captain," said the canoeist, "I expect to play my violin at our next campsite downriver after we all get safely through this canyon. This means the canoeist thinks they can make it through the canyon." Clark grinned. "That's what I wanted to hear. Let us find the others." The men pushed off from the shores and the canoes plunged into the rapids. The mighty current or strong flow of water pushed and pulled the boat. But working together, the men steered or guided the boats around rocks and away from the canyon walls, keeping their balance whenever the river threatened to tip over the boats. Finally, they shot out the other end of the rocky canyon in calm water. John Shields turned to his young friend, George Shannon. "What do you think, George?" Shannon answered, "I was just starting to enjoy myself. Do you think they have any more of these around here?" Both men began to laugh. Soon afterward, the men landed on an island in the middle of the river, just short of the place where the river emptied into the ocean. There, with the help of neighboring Native Americans, they survived another long, cold, rainy winter. At last, the weather cleared, and they were able to travel the rest of the way to the Pacific Ocean. There before them was a sight that they had dreamed of seeing: the Pacific Ocean. Some of the men cheered, others stood in silent contentment. That means they stood happily and quietly looking at the Pacific Ocean. Sacagawea was amazed. She had never seen an ocean or even a picture of one. Clark heard that a whale had washed up on a nearby beach, and he took Sacagawea to see it. She told him, "I have traveled a long way with you to see the great waters, and now I have seen this monstrous whale as well. I am so happy to see the ocean." She then walked along the sand, happily letting the waves wash over her feet. On March 23rd, 1806, nearly 2 years after first leaving St. Louis, the Corps of Discovery returned to head for home. They mapped a great deal of the Louisiana Territory and beyond, from the Mississippi River to the Pacific. This means that they had been able to draw maps of areas across which they had traveled. They now know how to get to the Pacific. They could take the Missouri River to the Rockies, across the Rockies on foot, and then take other rivers to the Pacific Ocean. They had made friends with many Native Americans. They found out that no single river ran all the way from the Missouri to the Pacific. They had learned about many animals, birds, fish, and insects. They had more adventures on the journey home, of course, but in the end, everyone got back safely except for a few who chose not to go back. John Ckla, the man whom the Teton Sioux had taken a horse, told Lewis, "Captain, I had enough of cities and crowds. I will stay in the West, if you will let me." So Ckla went to live among the Mandan people, promising, "I'll be here when you come back." And more than one of his friends did go back later to visit him. Sacagawea and her husband, Toussaint Charbonneau, with their little son that everyone called Pompey, went home to the Shoshone. Lewis and Clark told Sacagawea, "If it were not for you, we would never have succeeded." Sacagawea replied, "You showed me the great waters. We are friends. We helped each other." Setting off again, Lewis and Clark watched Sacagawea with her son in her arms, waving from the shore until a bend in the river blocked them from sight. Months later, the travelers reached home. There, they said their goodbyes and went their various ways, some to more adventures and some to quieter lives. Perhaps you would like to know what happened to the 4 people who had been most responsible for the journey. Lewis became governor of the entire Louisiana Territory. Clark became the governor of Missouri, then spent much of the rest of his life working with Native Americans on behalf of the government's newly created Bureau of Indian Affairs. Thomas Jefferson continued as president until 1809. 8 years later, James Monroe, who had arranged for Jefferson to buy the Louisiana Territory, was himself elected President of the United States. Jefferson was the president who bought the Louisiana Territory and hired Lewis and Clark to explore it. James Monroe was Jefferson's friend who traveled to France to buy New Orleans and the Louisiana Territory. The end. Hope you enjoyed the read aloud. Now it's time to transition to the comprehension conversation. At this time, if you choose to take a break, you can pause the video and take a break. If not, the conversation starts in 3, 2, 1. Question 1. Did Lewis and Clark reach the Pacific Ocean, and did everyone in the read aloud make it back home safely? The answer is yes, they did reach the Pacific Ocean, and yes, everyone who decided to go back home made it back safely. Some people chose to stay and live in the Louisiana Territory. Question number 2. Why did Jefferson send Lewis and Clark to explore the Louisiana Territory? Tell your turtle. I heard some voices whisper saying no one in the United States knew what the Louisiana Territory was like, so Jefferson sent Lewis and Clark to explore the territory. That is correct. They wanted to figure out and find out more information about the land out west. Question number 3. What were the 3 tasks Jefferson asked Lewis and Clark to complete? The 3 tasks were to make friends with Native Americans. That's number 1. Number 2, collect samples of plants and animals. Number 3, and find an all-water route to the Pacific Ocean. Next question. Were Lewis and Clark able to accomplish all 3 tasks? No, they were not. Which of the tasks were they able to accomplish? Anything you want to add? Lewis and Clark made friends with Native Americans and recorded information and collected samples of plants and animals. So they did 2 of the tasks. So that means that there was 1 that they did not accomplish. What was it? Lewis and Clark did not find an all-water route to the Pacific Ocean. They had to go on foot through the Rockies and then sail to other rivers to get to the Pacific Ocean. So the all-water route did not exist. So out of the 3 tasks, they accomplished 2 of them. Good job paying attention. Now it's time for word work. In the read aloud, you heard, when the explorers finally saw the Pacific Ocean, some of the men cheered. Others stood in silent contentment. The word is contentment. Say it with me. Contentment. Yes, contentment. When someone is feeling content, they are feeling happy and satisfied. A look of contentment showed on Sadiel's face when he finished his painting. Why is the word contentment a good word to describe the feelings some members of the Corps of Discovery had when they reached the Atlantic Ocean? Why else do you think they used the word contentment? Yeah, contentment is a good word to describe the feeling because they were really happy and satisfied. They accomplished the goal of their mission. What word have we been talking about again? Yes, the word is contentment. Think of a time when you expressed contentment. and share. Thanks for sharing. A time that I experienced contentment was when I first got my dog Onyx. I was really, really happy and satisfied because now I had a partner and a friend in the house all day long. So yes, I expressed contentment when I got my pet. Thank you for sharing with word work. Now let's move on to our application. Now it's time for the application. I will be reviewing some key information about important people and territory during the exploration of Lewis and Clark. Here we go with our first image of Thomas Jefferson. Thomas Jefferson wanted to buy New Orleans to maintain control over the Mississippi River. He asked James Monroe to ask Napoleon to sell New Orleans to the United States. Napoleon sold New Orleans and the Louisiana Territory to the United States. He also chose Lewis, who chose Clark as his co-captain to lead the expedition to the Louisiana Territory. Now let's go on to the next slide. The Louisiana Territory. This is the area of land the United States bought from France, doubling the size of the United States. Americans had not yet been to this part of North America. Lewis and Clark led an expedition through it. Lewis and Clark. Lewis was chosen by Jefferson to explore the Louisiana Territory. Lewis chose Clark as his co-captain. Together with the Corps of Discovery, they explored the territory. They accomplished 2 of the 3 tasks Jefferson asked them to do. Now it's time to transition to your exit ticket. For your exit ticket, you'll need a sheet of paper and a pencil. On the sheet of paper, please write your name on top, and I want you to write 1 to 3 sentences about what you learned from the read aloud today. When you are done, I want you to upload your work to Class Dojo. So don't forget, when you're done with your work, I want you to upload to Class Dojo.